Good morning. Welcome back, everybody, to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Thanks for being with us as we go through the dog days of summer when it comes to football, at least, right? Things are a little bit slow, but that doesn't mean we don't have Raiders football to talk about. So thank you for joining us here. We are Las Vegas's first and only all Raiders talk show. That's right. The new capital of Raider Nation. Got a lot to talk about today, even with slow news, if you will. And we're going to get to that. Today, we'll talk about a little bit about COVID-19. What's it going to do with the league? Are fans going to be saying, we've been talking about it every week, but some new developments as well this week. And so we want to make sure we talk with you through that. In addition, the Raiders continue to dominate and make local TV deals, and strategically very, very important. And we'll talk through that a little bit because the move from Oakland has already paid off, not only with all the sales of PSLs and season tickets, but everything else has been lining up, something that couldn't have happened in the bigger market in the Bay Area. So we'll talk through that. Also, remember the Raiders' red zone problems? Oh, yes, you do. Well, maybe they have a solution to that, or at least part of the solution. We'll talk through what that might be. We'll also give you an idea of, hey, there's still some free agents out there. Are there free agents on the market that can help the Raiders? We're going to ask or talk to you about that as well, too. So let's get into this. And I bring in, if you're joining, oh, by the way, you can join us on video, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. You can find us where we are now joined by my co-hosts, Chaz Osborne and your boy Q. Guys, good morning and welcome to another show.
Okay, Chaz. Well, I guess you're not gonna. I guess you don't want to say anything. I'll say something first. Well, thank you for welcoming us back to another show, man. It's always great to be on the radio with you guys, man. And it's great after a week that we've had to be able to sit here and talk some Raiders talk on this Sunday morning. So, thank you so much for having us back.
Yep. Good to see you guys. Great to be back. Good morning, Raider Nation. Let's talk some Raider football.
All right. And it looks like, Chaz, that you might have trimmed back that uncle mustache, or what did they call it? What did somebody call it last week? Uncle mustache? Uncle. Yeah, that's what it was. Okay.
My bristling black mustache. I was going
there you go.
But
I know.
Not enough pepper in there.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, too, also, just a reminder, again, the streaming on live video. Today, we're streaming the live video. We're still working out some of the audio issues with our new video platform. I don't mind telling you. We're just figuring it out, guys, with all this remote stuff still. So guess what? When you listen to us on video, you're not going to hear all the bumpers and the music and stuff going in and out, but you get to hear us, and that's what you're here for, right? I mean, that's at the end of the day.
Are they?
That's right.
At least you two guys. Me, I don't know, but they're here for that. So, but let's jump into this and talk a little bit about the Raiders and COVID-19, because I think the one thing that we should still talk about is we saw the NFL come out this week, guys. And to me, the guidance was surprising because over the last few weeks, I've been talking about how we need to look at equitable ways. So if you can't have fans in the stands in New York, then how can you have them in Florida with a full capacity stadium? Does that create a advantage for a team and making them home field advantage? Whereas if you're in New York, you don't have anybody there. So now what do we get? We get the NFL guys who say, listen, it's up to your local area and the local ownership. Are you with me, guys, on this? In that, like, I don't understand how they're doing that. I understand deferring to your local governmental agency who kind of is controlling this stuff, whether you agree with it or not. But I don't understand because now you're kind of opening it up to, hey, I'm going to Kansas City and there's nobody in the stands, and then I'm going to play the Raiders in Las Vegas and it's half full, and then I'm going to Arizona where there's 70,000 people.
I was surprised. I really was. I was shocked that they did that because when, if you remember correctly, when they shut down the facilities, they said, okay, well, one team can't get to the facilities, so we're going to shut down everything in the league, across the league, all the facilities. Well, now they're double backing and saying, well, you know what? It's okay. If you can't have fans in California, but you could have fans in Texas, it's all good. I honestly believe, Scott, that it goes back to money. I think that's the only reason they make this decision is because they know without fans in the stands how much money they could potentially lose as a league, and they're going to try to recoup as much as possible. That's the only thing that I can come up with that makes sense why they would say, you know, it's okay for you, but it's not okay for them. That's the only thing that I got.
Yeah, I think it was a little premature for the league to come out with a statement. You know, like I just said that the coronavirus statement, the situation is fluid. So we don't know in August or September if it's subsiding or if it's spiking again, right? But the biggest thing is the competitive advantage, right? A home crowd gives each stadium, such a huge advantage. So if California is only allowing 20% fans and Florida's allowing 80% fans, it's a huge swing. So personally, I think the NFL will change that, and they'll settle on a 50% capacity for all games, and then they'll have to work out the logistics of maybe the season ticket holders and some sort of a lottery, for the premium games and that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't think they should have came out and said leave it up to each individual team, because each individual team is going to put as many butts in the seats as they can, right?
Yeah, no, that piece of it I understand. I think, to me, though, the issue is competitive balance, right? So yeah, I mean, it's still early. I still think that could change, to your point, Chaz, that look, the NFL came out and said, look, it's going to be up to individual owners. It's going to be up to individual areas, because some areas are hit hard, some areas are not. I just don't understand, because then there's talk about, well, would you now suddenly, if you're playing in an empty stadium in New York, and they're playing the Cowboys in an interdivisional or a rivalry game, are they allowed to pump in crowd noise, which is illegal under NFL standards today? I think you're going to have a 1-year exemption, and they're going to figure this out. But to me, I don't see how at this point in time, there's no way every location is going to have full stands.
No, not at all. I mean, it's going to be really up in the air, and really it's going to be, especially with all the spikes that we're starting to see across the country. And I'll use Texas since I'm here as an example. Texas, the spikes are way, way up right now. So I would be shocked to see if they don't come up with some kind of resolution where it's all even. It just doesn't make sense to me not for it to be on an even playing field. And you mentioned the piping in the sound, the crowd noise. That is so lame. Like, I don't want them to do that at all. But you're right. There's a good possibility that they could do that. So I'm hoping that they don't get that bright idea and say, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. I don't want that at all.
No. And I think too, that you have a situation where I really don't see any stadium with a full crowd just yet. I mean,
no,
you talk about spikes. And I think, unfortunately, it's hard to know now. Yeah, there's spikes, right? And I'm not getting on too much of a soapbox here, but there's this fear porn thing going out there. Like, people like to be scared. They like to scare others. So there's a spike in Texas. We know that's happening. We don't know exactly how that's going to impact things in September. So I think the NFL, to me, I would have just done it a little different and said, listen, at this point in time, here's our plan. We're going to defer to local areas, and we're going to readdress this at the end of July. Right? Because to me, there's just too many unknowns right now, guys. And if you wait a little bit, and the NFL has the luxury of not having lost games yet to this, I still think, and Chaz, you tell me what you think about this, I still think that we're going to see at least the preseason cut in half, and maybe it might go away altogether.
Yeah, for sure, cut in half. I mean, it's July tomorrow, the next day, and here we are having spikes. So that means August right around the corner, September right around the corner. I don't see any way that they can think that they're going to fill any more than a 50% capacity. And I know, we're going to talk about how they're clearing out the first 8 rows and that sort of thing. Maybe they have to do something where they clear out, put a tarp over every other row. And that way you can keep a distance where you're not going to be worried about people jumping over or moving around. And, they already cut the Hall of Fame game, right? And so it's just, it's a fluid situation. So the coronavirus is basically dictating what's going to happen with all of these questions.
Scott, real quick is that we are all assuming that all the players are going to just say, okay, we're good to go. Let's go play. We're all assuming that all the players think it's all good. We've heard players throughout the past week say, yeah, I don't really quite know about that. Malcolm Jenkins was very vocal about not being sure about getting on the field. Zeke Elliott, he wasn't too sure about getting back on the field. How many more players are going to be out there and say, yeah, thanks, but no thanks?
Yeah, I agree with you, Q. And that's the other thing is, as we get closer, we're going to see that. And I really believe in my heart of hearts, when you look at it, like, for example, college football. And Q, I know you down there, you're covering all the time Baylor. I don't see college football starting on time at all. And again, I'm not ruling out. I've said all along, I know the NFL is kind of this forge ahead, and I think they're doing the right thing. I think they're saying, look, we are planning on carrying out our season as we always do. I don't think there's anything wrong with having that point of view. I just think that at the end of the day, we're going to move things. Why not give yourself a couple weeks, especially you could start with the preseason, get rid of the first 2 preseason games. Okay, if you have to get rid of the final 2, or maybe you go down to 1 and you delay the season by a week, it doesn't hurt anybody, and it gives you just that much more time for testing to see how trends are going. And to me, that's it. The NFL, as Chaz mentioned, has now said, hey, the first 8 rows of every stadium are going to be tarped off. And as a peace offering, because of the loss of revenue on seats, they're saying, look, you can sell that to local media so that they can be on TV, which is cool from a revenue standpoint. But what if you're a PSL seat holder, Q, in Las Vegas, who just doled out a huge amount of money for those seats, and now you don't get to sit in them?
Yeah, that's the big question, and I had a guy hit me up and tell me that, hey, he has seats in row 8, and so he wants to know what they're going to do, how they're going to readjust that, how they're going to move him. That's a great question, and that's up to, I guess, the individual teams, how they work that out, but it's very interesting how they're going to go about doing this. I just think that there's so much unknown that it's hard to answer a lot of these questions right now because, again, we don't know. You mentioned two weeks for the preseason. I think that makes all the sense in the world. And the downfall of that is going to be, I believe we'll see more veterans play in those 2 weeks instead of the younger guys, the guys that are scratching and clawing, trying to make a roster spot. I think you'll see the veterans try to get out there so they can get ready for the upcoming season. So there's going to be a lot of uncertainty and a lot of strange actions going on in 2020. This will not be your regular football season.
Yeah, that's it. They're going to kind of make it up as they go, right? Because, like I said, the coronavirus is going to dictate all of these decisions that they're going to be making. As far as the people in the first 8 rows, maybe that idea I had of the 50% capacity, they're going to make that up to them, and they'll give them, premium seats. But if you break down maybe the Raiders schedule, I think, we could agree that there's probably 4 premium games and then 4 regular games. So they have to do some kind of lottery where, 50% of the people, they get two premium and 2 regular games. And then the same thing, with the seats. If those people in those first 8 rows, now they got to take care of them. So if they do the 50% capacity thing, they'll be able to take care of those first 8 row people. But it's a fluid situation, and they're going to just keep making decisions on the fly till hopefully they get it right.
But here's the thing, too. Again, Los Angeles with the Rams and that Canadian Football League that shares a stadium with them.
Oh,
I had one of our comments on the broadcast here was making fun of the Chargers are used to playing in front of nobody anyway. But the point is, you have 2 new stadiums. In Las Vegas's case, guys, it's a new city, right? So guess what? You spend all the money, and I agree with you, Chaz, premium games, and you'll figure it out, and then they'll make it up to you next year when hopefully this is all over. The issue is the first game, September 21st, or if they delay it, whatever date it is, against the Saints on Monday Night Football. Who does not want to be there in the first ever Las Vegas Raiders game at Allegiant Stadium? That's going to be tough because you talk about that's above a premium game. That is a once in a lifetime type thing. And I think It's going to be hard for them to find equitable solutions. I know they'll come up with something, and maybe it'll knock the socks off of these people, like they get some kind of, road trip thing, or who knows what the teams will do. But to me, that in this market with the team new here, it's going to be really interesting and difficult for them to make people whole on this thing.
Well, one of the things that you mentioned the first game against New Orleans, and that's going to be a primetime game, that Monday Night Football game. Yeah, everyone's going to want to be there, including Saints fans, because they travel really, really well. So now how do you accommodate others, and how do you accommodate the home team as well?
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, and it's not an easy thing to solve, right, guys? I mean, that's the thing, is that they're going to have to figure it out, but we'll see how it all goes down. All right, we are coming up on a break. When we come back from the break, what we're going to do is we are going Vegas, because guys, I got to be honest with you, they are nailing it here, and it's not just because they're signing deals, it's because they're shutting everybody else out, and we'll talk about that. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. All our folks on video, we're in a break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about TV deals, the Raiders and TV deals. I'm going to unmute the guys here. We can talk to you during breaks even.
That's what I'm talking about. I don't like being muted.
Yeah. Yeah. Did I
Thank you, Trent.
Okay, we got them both going here. I had a point there where it was all clear and it was just one sound, and then I realized
that's because I muted you on video.
feed.
Wendy has a good point about all newbies playing in the preseason, but I think at some point you're going to have to get these veterans ready to play, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, you have to evaluate talent, but that's what I'm thinking is that when they figure out exactly what's going to happen with the season, they're going to change some of those rules around rosters and roster cuts and dates and stuff like that, especially if they have to delay stuff.
Yep. Good one, Wendy.
Yeah.
Here we go. Welcome back, everybody, to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Coming to you live on the radio.com app. Make sure you download the radio.com app. Take us with you. Take all the great sports programming and music and talk, whatever you like. You can find it on radio.com. Also, we're streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So if you want to go over there and watch us, you can come into my studio home den here, as well as Q's home, Chaz's home, and just invade our privacy. You can come on in. But make sure you do that. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. We do a bunch of different Raider videos, including all the interviews and things we have here on the show. So make sure you do that. Check out silverandblacktoday.com, the website that started it all. Make sure you go up there. Some great stories up there from Moten, as well as some position outlooks and this story that we're going to talk about now, guys, which is related to the Raiders and what they're doing locally. This week, the Raiders announced their third major local television deal, this time with the city's NBC affiliate, which is Channel 3 here in town. And it includes a training camp show and regular season content. And what they're doing, and this is really smart, because early on, talked to somebody in the business who said, listen, the Raiders are going to go in and they're going to make deals with everybody, because even though me included love the Golden Knights hockey and there's UNLV fans out there and all that stuff, they want to dominate local television and radio, but they want to dominate local television first and foremost. So they're going to go out and make deals with everybody so that they suck up all the air in the room, so to speak. And guys, this is what I think people in Las Vegas who maybe have never lived in an NFL market don't understand is when you are in a market like Las Vegas, which is smaller. The Raiders came out of the Bay Area, where you had to compete with a lot of different things, including the 49ers, who've had a lot more success in recent decades. They've had to compete here now. They came in and they are laying waste and making sure that they own all the time and all the space with these exclusive content deals.
Without a doubt, and they're owning the whole market, and football is king. We know that. Football, it pushes everything across the country. And the Raiders are going into Las Vegas and saying, you know what, this is our home, and we're going to show you that. And by all the TV deals that they're making, all the different partnerships they're coming up with, they're letting it be known that you will see the Silver and Black. You will see the Raiders all over Vegas, one way or the other. If you're looking for them or not, they're going to be in your ears, in your eyes. And see, that's the thing. You mentioned the Bay. They had to compete with the 49ers, the Warriors, the Kings. I mean, to say something, LA as to a certain extent, the Lakers and everybody. I mean, there's so much that there is to compete with in the Bay. This in Vegas, they're going to say this is our home and we're going to own it all.
Yeah, Chaz, you worked with the Lakers, being in that LA market, and the Lakers obviously have always done well. The NFL wasn't there forever, but same thing, right? Too, is you saw the Lakers, they had the Clippers there, they had hockey. They did much of the same thing, did they not? In trying to just try to get as much content, as many relationships as you can with local media.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only local, but I can remember we drafted a Chinese player because they were, when the Chinese market was becoming a huge thing, and then we went after Jeremy Lin for the same kind of reasons. Obviously they're good players, but you're reaching out to good. And the same thing with the Raiders. They're not trying to dominate the local market. They're trying to dominate the region. I've got friends in Utah, and the Raiders are advertising up in Utah. Yep. And I saw a girl wearing a Marcus Mariota jersey a couple of days ago here, a Raiders Mariota jersey. So, I'm not saying they got Mariota just to try to get the Hawaiian market, but that is.
Oh yeah, they did.
But
no,
that,
but that's part of it. You're right, Chaz, and Fabian Ramirez, one of our longtime listeners and viewers on YouTube, with his question right now. We're showing you on the screen if you're watching the video. Fabian says, will all of this new video be available online? It's a good question, Fabian. I don't know. We'll ask. We'll do some interviews in the next few weeks. We'll get some of the TV guys on. We're friendly with them. They're all good guys. We'll ask them kind of what their stations are doing. I would imagine yes, because most of these stations now have their content on digital. Now, it's programming that they're creating about the Raiders. It's not Raiders programming that they're just showing, which the Raiders do as well, too, by the way. The Raiders have their black and silver and black show and all these other things that they do that they can pump out to local stations. But these are unique content deals, including following them and doing, like, for example, the Channel 3 deal that we just talked about. That deal includes highlighting Raider stuff on even the high school TV shows here when it's high school football season. So again, they're intertwining the Raiders professional football and what they do in the community, because they do a lot when it comes to high school football and things of the nature. So you're going to see that. And to me, though, it's just brilliant now. But guys, if I am UNLV, if I'm the Golden Knights, it's going to be much harder for me, Q, and you live in a market where you're covering college and pro. And even though people love their college sports, if the NFL team, if the Cowboys decided to come in and suck up the air, it's hard to break in.
It is. It absolutely is. I mean, the Cowboys, Texas. I mean, no matter what, no matter where you are, even if you're in Houston, who has their own NFL team, the Cowboys are still king. And that's just what it is. They own the San Antonio market. That's why they objected to, hey, the Raiders could go play in San Antonio. No, they can't, because Jerry Jones has that on lock. He's not going to let another football team go into that market that he already owns. And so, yeah, I mean, that's just what it is. And so football teams and other sporting events and colleges, it's hard to be a big player in the market. You can do it. You can carve out a niche. Like Baylor did a really good job carving out a niche in Central Texas. But I mean, if it worse come to worse, if you had to pick between Cowboys and the Baylor, I believe they're picking Cowboys all day long.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer, right? The other thing, though, is if you look at this again, it's hard because you don't want, and Q, you're a Bay Area native, I know, and the team moving and all the emotions surrounding that. But sometimes I think this is where people miss the point on they're leaving this big market for this small market. But when you're the small fish in the big pond,
yes,
right,
yes,
then that's exactly so. When you do that, you're not really doing. Now you're the big fish in the small pond. All right,
exactly.
And with all due respect to the Golden Knights, and then you have UNLV who still can't find their way but are trying. It's like you're not, you just now own it. So if I'm them, not only did I build a stadium, I built my headquarters here. I got TV deals with everybody. So there's not going to be very many times of the year or the week or the day when you're going to tune in and not see Raiders content.
And that's the beautiful thing about it. And that's honestly, guys, why I even got into the business, is because just like Fabian pointed out on the group chat or on the live chat, he said that it always killed him, the lack of Raider coverage in the Bay Area. And this has been going on not just last year, but all years. I mean, when I was a young dude, that was part of the frustrations, is why is this team that I love so much not being shown on TV? Why are they the last highlight to be shown? Why are they the almost the redheaded stepchild of the group, you know? And it's true. And so now, like you said, they go into a market and they are the big fish. They're a shark in this pond, you know, and they're being looked at as, you know, all this greatness is coming to the market. Now, the thing about it is it's all good right now. You got to find a way to win games, because that will wear out really, really quick if you're not winning games.
Right. Now they will. I always thought, you know, back in the day when the Raiders were still, you know, very good, 80s, 90s, I always thought, why didn't the Raiders have their own channel? You know, just 24 hours, the Raiders, man. And then the Lakers finally did it, you know, few years back, 10 years back, and I was like, how come the Raiders aren't doing that? Like, that's for us being Raider fans. That's all we want to see 24/7 is Raiders action. Unfortunately, in different markets, when you're competing with other, sports teams, maybe not everybody wants to see the Raiders. But now that they're in Vegas, it will be everybody wanting to see the Raiders because they will dominate over here, and I think they will win. I think they'll bring it, they'll bring it back to the good old days.
Right.
Sooner rather than later.
That's our optimist, Chaz. But no, it's true. But Q and I was on Q's podcast, the Locked In podcast. Oh, there's our dog visit of the weekend. I love it. But Q, I was on your podcast this week real quick before we go to break, and we talked about like endorsements and things. And that's the other thing too, that you think, again, smaller market, how the player's going to make more money on the side. But in reality, there's a lot of opportunity here in Las Vegas. You're also close to the LA market, and they're tied in constantly. But this is also, I think, going to be better for the individual players who are going to make deals. The Hunter Renfrows of the world who do have national appeal, but now he can sign a deal with a car dealership here, and he's making money and endorsements all over the place.
Exactly. That's the thing about it, man. They're going to want to put these players' names in lights. I mean, they really are. Everyone's going to want to be associated with the Raiders one way or the other. And all these businesses are going to come to them and say, hey, this is what we have to offer. Let's get it going. And you see the Raiders and all the endorsements they've already come up with, and they haven't played a down yet in Las Vegas yet. They haven't even hit the field, and they're already coming up with a lot of business adventures. It's only going to continue to grow. And that's an exciting thing for the Raiders and Raider Nation.
Yeah, and guys, before we go to the break too, the one thing, and I keep fighting this, and I'm not picking on you, Dr. Marone, but I don't think they're going to lose home field advantage. I think that's overplayed. I think, again, back to Q's point about winning, if you're a 2-14 team, yes, it might be a problem. But the Raiders are in that rebuild. They're on that step of taking the next step of being a good, serious playoff run team. So I don't see it. We saw it with the Knights. You saw it. You're here. Yes, they won and they went to the Stanley Cup Finals. But even when there were lulls and they weren't doing well, you didn't have massive turnout. So I think it's going to be okay. I think you're going to be all right with home field advantage, and I don't think the Raiders will lose that. It will take time for the tradition, for the crowd, for the fans here to get into it and find their rhythm too. But it's going to happen, and I think it's going to be a whole new type of home field advantage here in Las Vegas. Okay, we're going to step aside for the bottom of the hour break. When we come back, we're going to talk about something that most Raider fans don't like to talk about because it's not fun, and that is the Raiders' red zone offense. It was brutal last year. Have they found a way to improve it? We'll talk about it next here on the Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Yeah, Dr. Marone, I know you're on there, man. Hey, I don't think, again, Q, I don't, maybe it's me because I'm a Vegas guy, but I think this whole thing about, they're not going to have a home field advantage. I mean, listen, the Coliseum was not sold out every game during the last 5 years.
No, and Raider fans were just louder. They were just louder and more, and so I don't think it'll be they'll lose a home field advantage. I just think it's going to look different, and I think that's what a lot of people are talking about is it just looks and feels different than it has in the past because it's new.
Well, the Raiders, the Coliseum had such a mystique that the other fans didn't want to be too loud because they don't want to get noticed.
Right, exactly. So I think it'll be okay.
Okay, Dr. Marone just put a new comment. I don't believe it either. Yeah, no, I agree with you, Doc. I think that, look, I think a lot of people who say, well, it's not going to have the same home field advantage. I don't think that's what they mean, and I don't mean to interpret what everybody says. No, I really don't. I think what they mean is it's not going to be Oakland, and it's not. Right. It's not Oakland. It's going to be different. Yes, that doesn't mean it's less of a home field advantage.
No, and a lot of Raider fans, we're all used to being in the parking lot, tailgating before, and really having a big old huge party, and that atmosphere is going to be different. The scene's going to be different. It's all going to be different, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be good. It just means it's going to be different. Yeah.
No, but I think as we were talking about before we went to the break for our video viewers who are still with us, the coming to this market was criticized because of the size.
Grittier up there.
Oh yeah, but I think the way it is paid off financially, and people come at me sometimes with this. Well, the salary cap's a salary cap. It doesn't matter if they're making more money. That's not how it works.
Right.
That's not how you keep your facilities upgraded. That's not how you get people to come here. There's all sorts of things that are involved with the financial well-being of your franchise, and so to me, them coming here and what they're going to be able to do here, it's different. It'll take one season for things to gel. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
Yeah, agreed.
How are we doing on time, Trent? Minute 15. All right. There's another tailgating is a big part of the Raider experience, and I think fans will miss that. There will be tailgating. It just won't be the same tailgating. And I understand that's a change. And I understand how much, like Q, you were just talking about, right? If you're a Raiders fan who's gone to tailgate in Oakland for years, that it's less about the way it's done and how tailgating goes. It's more about the experience with the people you're with, right?
Yep.
And I understand that it'll change, and I think people have to be patient. I don't think year one the Raiders will nail it here. I think it's going to be messy,
especially this year. This year.
Oh yeah, you might not even be able to do it. Period, and that's not because there's not room to do it. It's because you can't because of the pandemic.
What up, John East? What's up, Victor?
Victor, thanks, man. Yeah, it's a team effort. It's everybody together, and I appreciate that very, very much. But without you guys, we're not here either. So believe me, you guys are the stars, not us.
What's up, Wendy?
There's Wendy.
Hey, Wendy.
What's up, Dominic?
Wendy's our London buddy.
Yep.
We pubbed with her in London.
You said
Wendy's
you puffed
nice.
with her?
Pub, but
Oh,
I was like, dang.
down here.
slow
Maybe
down,
we did,
Q.
maybe we didn't.
Here we go. We are back. We are talking Raiders football here on CBS Sports Radio 1140 on the Silver and Black today. Check out silverandblacktoday.com. Make sure you hit us up on YouTube. Go subscribe, hit notifications, hit all so you never miss a show, you never miss a video. But we are always there, and we are talking Raiders football. By the way, I want to say my oldest, my daughter, turns 23 tomorrow.
Nice.
We celebrated a little early, so
Happy birthday.
happy birthday to her. Also, a nice happy birthday to a young man, Dylan Rice, my good friend Dave Rice, former coach at UNLV, now at the University of Washington. His son Dylan turned 18, and we're proud of what he's done and what he's become. So happy birthday to our good friend Dylan Rice. All right, on we roll. Guys, red zone problems for the Raiders. If you look at the Raiders last year, they ranked 22nd. Actually, the last 2 years, ranked 22nd in both seasons under John Gruden when it came to red zone scoring and offense. And now you have last year, Darren Waller, by the grace of God, came along and they got better. He had 3 touchdown receptions in there, and the Raiders seem to have some of the pieces. But Q, this team has not been able to do it, has not been able to convert. We've seen it especially in the second half. Talk to me a little bit in your mind of why that is.
Well, I mean, it starts with the head man. I mean, it does. It starts with John Gruden. He's got to hit the right buttons. You know, he really does. And look, now the way that the league is played, between the 20s, nobody's really worried about. Between the 20s, it's okay if you give up a bunch of yards. When it comes down to the red zone, teams are going to want to buckle down and make you kick field goals instead of converting touchdowns. So John Gruden's going to have to figure out how to keep that good offense going between the 20s, and then once he gets it to the red zone, he has more weapons now, and so he's got to figure out what guy is going to be able to be that red zone threat. You know, for years for Derek Carr, it was Michael Crabtree, right? Michael Crabtree was the guy. Matter of fact, Michael Crabtree was the go-to guy, period, for Derek Carr for the longest, and then he wasn't there anymore, and you know he kind of has a shelf life. He's good for a couple years, and then he's kind of that guy. But you just got to figure out exactly how to convert down there and what, you can't bog down. You can't just be predictable where it's run Jacobs, run Jacobs, run Jacobs. Oh, well, it's third down. Now you got to try to throw it and get it into the end zone. Oh, well, settle for a field goal. Now he's going to have to use some of those guys that have big bodies. Tyrell Williams, hopefully he's healthy. Brian Edwards, hopefully he gets healthy. I mean, it's going to be guys like that with the big bodies that Derek Carr is going to be able to go and make a play and get him the rock.
Yep. And we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. The Raiders were sixth in yards per drive and seventh in third down conversion rate, but 24th in points per game, right? And so then they're 11th in yards per game, but 22nd in red zone percentage. So I'm with you, Q. I got to put it on the head coach. During his 7-year stint with Tampa Bay, we talked about the Raiders' red zone percentage last year was 53. During his 7 years in Tampa Bay, he had a 47% red zone, average. And I think it's just his conservative nature, his old school mentality. Sometimes it feels like he'd rather get that field goal than punch it in the end zone.
Right, and that's the thing, and what's worse about that is he's going to have to get out of that. We talk about, the team has weapons now. Well, you got to use them. You absolutely have to use them, and a lot of it has to do with John Gruden being conservative. He's going to have to say, I want to have a high-octane offense, and that's up and down the whole length of the field, not just in the red zone. He's going to have to be able to use these weapons. Henry Ruggs was a heck of a selection, but speed doesn't do anything if you can't get him the rock. There's a lot of things that won't matter if you can't take advantage and get him the rock. So it's going to really be up to him and Derek Carr, Greg Olsen, all to be on the same page and make sure they're hitting the right buttons.
Well, and you talked about too, Q. Yes, and I agree with both of you actually. That yes, Gruden does it, and Mo Moten actually wrote a piece up on silverandblacktoday.com, which has been blowing up the site the last 24 hours. You should go see about John Gruden, the investment that the Raiders have made in him long term, and where are we with ROI, return on investment on that. You can go read that. I highly recommend it. But when you look at what they've been able to do, I think that, again, that's where Derek Carr threw well. He had yards in between the 20s. Then when they got in, I think you had the combination of lack of weapons. Yes, you had tight end. You had these guys moving around. You had Hunter Renfrow move around. But the fact that Waller had 3 touchdowns tells you something. Now, this year heading in, you have Foster Moreau. You have now Jason Witten. You have a lot more weapons too. So to me, if you adjust that offensive scheme and the outlook and be less conservative and start to open up the book, there's really no excuse now from a coaching perspective. And then on the player side, guys, they have to execute. But for this team to get to that next step, you cannot settle with 3. Q, we talked about it a few weeks ago, man. You replace one of those touchdowns on both sides with a field goal or a touchdown from on the offensive standpoint. It's the difference in 3 wins last year.
Exactly. And if the Raiders want to make a playoff push in 2020, which I believe they're capable of doing, that's exactly what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to find a way to punch it in the end zone. I saw someone mention Brian Edwards. It's a name I brought up earlier. I don't know how much production he's going to have early on in his career because, again, this is a weird, strange year with a weird offseason. But at the same time, man, he's going to be needed. Darren Waller's going to be needed. And last year, guys, when they got down into the red zone, you saw everyone concentrated on Darren Waller because they knew that, hey, that's their guy. That's the guy who they go to, their playmaker right now. So at least this year, with the more weapons they have, they won't be able to just focus 100% on Darren Waller. They won't be able to just load the box up against Josh Jacobs. They'll have to respect Brian Edwards. They'll have to look out for Bowden. They'll have to look out for Tyrell Williams. There's a lot of different pieces. Hunter Renfrow, he's a guy that I really expect to take a step in the right direction, a step up in 2020 in the red zone because they'll have less concentration on him moving forward.
Well, and Chaz, one of the things we heard after the draft and because all of the AFC West teams got better in most ways. Sure, there's some big question marks with the Chargers and quarterback and all of that, and in Denver too with a young quarterback. But Chaz, the one thing, Gil Brandt, of course, the famous and legendary coach you can hear on NFL Network now, he said the AFC West is going to be like watching the Big 12. And Q knows all about this because he covers the Big 12. And that is, it's going to be offense and then offense. And then, by the way, after that's done, it's going to be more offense. So not only do you have to move the ball up and down the field, Chaz, but because you're going to have to outscore people, even with a better defense, because the Raiders will have a much better defense, but without scoring and capitalizing in the red zone, Chaz, the Raiders could find themselves out of the playoff race quickly if they don't do it well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the AFC West has always kind of had that stigma, right, of being, you always hear the announcers, oh, it's a Wild West shootout here, the AFC West, So it's always kind of been like that. But, Denver's known for their defense now. They've got a defensive-minded head coach. And the Raiders, they've tried to bolster up that defense this year. So, I've always preached defense. Defense is going to win you those games. But absolutely, the Raiders need to score more. And I think they will. They've got all the pieces in place. For me, Henry Ruggs is the key to the success for the team this season. His speed on that outside, that's going to relieve the pressure off of the tight end. That's going to relieve the pressure off the running game. And even in the red zone, if he's flying, from sideline to sideline back there, it's going to create some havoc having Henry Ruggs there. So for me, he's the key to the whole season. If he's successful, then the Raiders offense will be successful. And I think there's enough defensive pieces there now that even if it is a shootout, we'll be able to make those stops at the end of the game where in the past we haven't been able to do that.
You know what'll make the team more successful and the offense more successful? If the defense can create some turnovers. If the defense can create some turnovers and give them short fields, that's going to make them that much more explosive. And if you want to go back, and we always have to go back to 2016 when Derek Carr was really cooking with grease and they were coming back and winning games late, what was happening? The defense was creating turnovers and giving them short fields, and they were able to overcome games that they might be behind in because they were able to just strike real quickly. That's what the Raiders do, is strike quick if they have the opportunity. Now, if they have to go the whole length of the field, then it's going to be a long, drawn-out drive. But if they're 40 yards out, they might take a shot immediately, and that's when a guy like you just mentioned, Chaz, like a Henry Ruggs could come in the major play because that speed kills.
Yep.
Well, and that's the thing. I think with those weapons, we look at the Henry Ruggs draft pick and we think, wow, everybody's salivating, right? Everybody's like, this guy, the speed, it's going to be unbelievable. Derek Carr has that guy finally that he hasn't had since you guys mentioned, since Crabtree was gone, and Amari Cooper to a certain degree. So that's great. But again, between the 20s, man, you've got to be able to do it. I think most of all, you have the talent, right? They have to execute, but to me, it's going to all come down to coaching and scheming and making sure that you are doing what you can. You have to be creative. You can no longer have a vanilla red zone offense. You've got to show a lot of looks, a lot of motion, a lot of different sets with Bowden, with these guys in the backfield, with Josh Jacobs. To me, there's just no excuse why they shouldn't be able to execute on it. And I think they will. I'm not being negative. I'm just saying the expectations on this offense, guys, are going to be massive.
Without a doubt. I think the expectations for this team are going to be massive this year. I mean, I really do, just because, like you guys mentioned, the roster to me looks like it's so well put together. I mean, I really do. I feel like they've really addressed a lot of the area of need that they had, and I think that they'll be able to take advantage and compete in the AFC West, which is going to be, basically like basketball on a football field. It's going to just be almost a glorified 7-on-7. It has a potential to be that, just because there's a lot of talent. So I think that the Raiders could compete with anyone. They just got to go out there and do it. And again, that's not negative talk. We just need to see it. We can see it on paper, but you don't win games on paper.
That's right. All right. We are going to step aside for our final break. By the way, our last week at 1 hour. Next week, we're going to have a best of show for you. We'll take the holiday off, and then we come back to 2 strong hours every week. We're going to step aside, take that break. We're still going to be chatting on video. So if you're watching us on video, you can hear us talk. We'll take your questions there as well. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. All right.
I like that. He pointed. You see that? He pointed. He was like, boom. Pointed.
Damn.
Here's Hector. Hector's got some words for you, Q.
Hey, keep it clean, Hector. Keep it clean.
I know it's a family show, Hector. Come on, man.
I appreciate the love, though. I do. I appreciate the love. Hey, but Shawshank Raider has a great point, though. Punt and kickoff return is going to be crucial, too. He is spot on. That's got to be a lot better.
He is. And by the way, we have Shawshank. If you haven't been to silverandblacktoday.com, there's a story up there by our writer, Chris, about long snapper. Now, I know people are like, long snapper, who cares? Long snapper is a huge position. They have Trent Sieg, who's a veteran, but they got that young kid out of Ohio State, Liam McDougall. Check it out because, again, that goes back to your point about kicking and special teams. Yeah, I know special teams aren't sexy, but when you're going to put together a playoff team, guys, you have to put every aspect of the game together, and that includes the kicking game.
Yep, absolutely. And their field position, that's simple as that. Field position, you're given the 25-yard line. If you can go and get to the 30, 35, 40, on occasion, I mean, then that's setting your team up for success. And punt returns is critical too. I mean, you got to secure it, but at the same time, you want to be able to get nice dynamic punt returns as well. And yeah, man, that kicking game is major. And by the way, the punting game as well, being able to pin teams deep instead of, kicking it out of the end zone and getting them automatic 20 yards or whatever. You got to be smart about it, man.
Yeah. Hey, look at this question or prediction from Pitts 73-73.
Yes.
Which is 20, by the way. 7-3 is 20. Anyway, sorry, math joke. Prediction: do the Raiders get one game from KC this year?
Yes.
I think in Vegas they do.
It's funny. I actually said that they were going to win that Week 5 game, the one before the bye, because the one in Vegas is coming off the bye, and Andy Reid is pretty stinking good coming off the bye.
They off the bye.
I think that they'll get that one in Kansas City. I really do believe, because early in the season, I think they have an opportunity to steal one.
They played him pretty good last year, right? I mean, obviously the second quarter of the first game, but then the game in Kansas City, they played him pretty tough for a minute.
Yeah.
So they can just put a full game together. They'd get him.
So much is made of the plans for AB last year. Does Ruggs fill that role? Well, Ruggs is not proven in the NFL like AB was, but yeah, I mean, he was the number one.
Right.
That was a troll job. That was a fake Sports Center account about the Mahomes asking for the Chiefs to change their name.
No such luck.
Trolls. God bless them.
Q has asked me to change my name to R.
That'd be awesome.
Double 7s around here.
Oh my gosh.
Or you could just be S and Chaz could be C.
I like the Z.
I love it.
That's cool.
Z might be a little too sleepy. Here comes Z. What? Z's here.
Shawshank in Virginia.
Okay. All right. HS Sportiva. Home officing. Working on the weekend, or are you somewhere? I can't tell where you're from. You could be in Europe. You could be. We have a lot of European viewers and listeners. So
working on the weekends.
Look at Hector. Bet his friend a jersey. The jersey, like I'm wearing my Padres baseball jersey. Here we go. We'll get back to you, Hector. All right, that was Speed Kills, man. Cliff Branch. We were just talking with some of our viewers on YouTube Live, because we do converse with everybody during the breaks on video, and they were asking us if AB his role was going to be replaced by Ruggs, and yes, Speed is back. And but we certainly missed that gentleman. All right, we're in the home stretch here, and we wanted to ask the question to close out our last hour show. Again, after this week, we're going to go back to 2 hours after next week's holiday break. And guys, here's the question. There's still some free agents out there. Q's celebrating the holiday already. He's ready.
Jamal Adams.
I'm ready for 2 hours. I'm ready for 2 hours.
I know, me too. We're going to have plenty, especially as we get close to camp. So here's the question, guys, and I'll start with you, Q. Of free agents, now Chaz just was screaming Jamal Adams, who's not technically a free agent. He has to be traded for. But is there somebody that's on the street, so to speak, Q, that you think would be additive, would help at a position of need for the Raiders right now that they should go out and sign?
Well, it's easy to say Jadeveon Clowney, just because you add another guy to the defensive line. I think it'd be really good. But I'm going to flip the script, and I'm going to go with Devontae Freeman. I think that he's a guy who, even though he wants too much money and he's not going to get it from anybody, I think he's a guy that could come in and really spell Josh Jacobs and be a veteran that knows what he's doing. And I know a lot of people expect Lynn Bowden Jr. to go in and right away be that guy, but I just know Devontae Freeman has got some skins on the wall. He's been there, done that. He was a really dynamic running back at some point. I think he'd be a good addition to the Raiders' backfield and kind of slowly help bring Lynn Bowden Jr. along as well. And if you look at different positions on the Raiders right now on their roster, they they have a lot of young guys, but they'll have a veteran in front of them where once they're able to take the reins, then they can do that. Like Prince Makamura, maybe he'll take the role for over Damon Arnett originally, and then when Arnett's ready, then he'll take that spot. I saw someone mention LaMarcus Joyner and Amik Robertson. Same thing. Joyner will probably start out the slot, and then sometime throughout the season, Amik Robertson will probably take over when he's comfortable. I think the same thing could be said for Devontae Freeman, the running back, and then make way for Lynn Bowden Jr. at another time.
Right.
Yeah.
And we saw that with the Jason Witten signing, right? Gruden likes to bring in these veterans and just have that stable. We saw back in the early 2000s, right, when he brought in Jerry Rice and Rod Woodson and bunch of huge amount of these veterans. Just that's what John Gruden likes to do. So I hate to be the Debbie Downer. Since Kelly's not here, I have to do it. I know the Raiders only have about $8 million in salary cap, and I think they need about $9.5 million to sign all these rookies they just drafted. So I don't even think that they'd be able to get a free agent. But I'm with you. You bring in a Clowney, obviously. If we're talking about dream scenarios, or somebody like a Michael Bennett, somebody that's been there that can talk to him, and Aqib Talib.
Keep Bennett out of Vegas. Keep Bennett out of Vegas.
Right.
No,
we talked about that last week. I'm worried about that a little bit.
Yeah, and to me though, it's you can never be too deep at any position. But I didn't see any. I thought maybe there's a couple good guys on offensive line. I know everybody talks about how great the Raiders offensive line is, but you go 2 or 3 deep, and there's an opportunity you might be able to get somebody cheap that's on the street. There's a couple guys out there, some of them older, like Warford and some of these other guys. But other than that, to me, the bigger names, yeah, Clowney, I get it. I just don't think. I don't know. I don't think even at 27, he's the guy you want to go with. I think they like what they're doing on that young defensive line. And until you see it perform. And so to me, to your point about the salary cap too, Chaz, I don't see them going out and signing anybody unless you have an injury. Now, if you have an injury in camp, especially with this weird year, that could happen very quickly. But overall, I kind of like what the Raiders have done. And even where they have spots where they might have some holes, I think you just roll with it and you go with your plan. And it seems like, Q, that's what the Raiders have been doing for the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's what it feels like that they're doing. It feels like that's what they're going to do, and I know I mentioned Devontae Freeman, and a couple people said, well, what about Jalen Richard? And I think he's a really good pass catcher out of the backfield. I think he's a really good blocker. I don't know that he's the guy that I want running between the tackles all the time. And I know we talked to Devontae Booker. He's on the roster right now, but I just don't know if he makes it. I think he's going to have a real tough camp battle. And if he makes it, then he might be that Devontae Freeman guy, and they don't need it, so they can stand pat, like you're saying. But if he's not 100% healthy, or if he's not just what they're looking for as far as explosiveness, then a guy like Devontae Freeman would be very, very critical and I think beneficial to the roster.
Well, guys, what about but when you look at holes going into what is the biggest concern you have? Because if they were going to go out and get a free agent, it has to be at a point of need. And if you look at this roster today, before we get into camp, again, we're just making wild assumptions here because of the fact that we haven't seen anybody on the field yet. What's the biggest weakness?
Safety, corner, somewhere on the defense, right?
Yeah, I would say on the defensive side of the ball, I think that the offense is pretty solid. I really do. We've had a couple people say kicker. That's very valid as well. There should be a good kicking battle going on in training camp as well. The kicking game has to be a lot better, so that could be it too.
Yeah, I agree with that. Special teams is huge. You saw that Al Davis, first and foremost, he drafted a kicker and a punter in the first round. That's obviously a big part of it. And even the return game we talked about earlier, you get some great returner. Then you're talking about field position. Football's a game of field position, and you get a guy that's setting you up on the 35, 40-yard line every time instead of starting on the 20, 25. It's a huge advantage.
It is. All right. Well, we are up against the end of the show. We got about a minute left. I know. Q, I know. It's the last time we got to go an hour. Then we get our second hour back. We get our second hour back. But listen, next week, we're going to have a best of Silver and Black today with some great interviews. I know. Imagine that. We're taking the weekend off for Independence Day so that everybody can reflect on what that means. But honestly, we can't wait to get back to 2 hours. We're going to have some big guests on July 12th, so make sure you stay tuned. Want to thank everybody here for joining us. But guys, when we look at what's happening with the Raiders, we're a couple weeks away now, about 3.5 before we start getting into camp. I think news is going to be a little hard to come by. You're going to start going through some more withdrawal if you haven't already started doing it. But we're going to keep you up to date. Q, tell them a little bit about your Locked In podcast this week and what you got coming up for next week.
Well, I mean, it's just on the daily. You know, it'll be out every single morning. By the time you wake up, it's already up and ready to go every single day. And the news isn't really coming out fast and furious, but I'll always find a way to talk some silver and black. And so we'll have a lot on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Just check me out on Twitter at your boy Q254 if you're looking for it.
That's right. In fact, if you look below, we're scrolling all of our Twitter handles, so make sure you go check us all out. Well, Chaz, Q, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Peace.
All right, we're going to step aside. Again, you've been listening to Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Thanks to Trent back in the studio for doing all that you do. We'll talk to you in a few weeks. All right.
Cool.
We're still live on video. Do just a couple minutes of Chaz. Bye, Wendy. You don't want to stay and hang out, huh?
Bye, Felicia.
Come back, Wendy. I got a special guest here.
Uh-oh, he's going to get the dog. Guest. Oh, see, for all the post-show viewers, you get to see Chaz's dog.
Coach Belichick is in the house.
Wow.
You're earning fans, Chaz, with the dog, I'm sure.
Who doesn't want to see puppies?
That's right. That's right.
There's some good comments here on our feed.
What about this one?
Don't trade for real.
I'm not sure the money adds up there, but
no, you don't trade. You don't trade for real. You got him for multiple reasons.
Wendy, it's the Locked On Raiders podcast. You can find it everywhere you get your podcasts. It's a great one. Q does it every single day.
Yeah, buddy.
Thank you, Fabian, man. I appreciate you always being here.
We're going to get this thing together, man. Get these Raiders back on track, get back in the playoffs, start making some noise.
Hey, Trent, thanks, man. You can pop off whenever because we're just on video. Thanks, brother. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Yep.
Thanks, Trent.
Pitts, yes, if you're still watching, we do the show every Sunday. It's on the radio. CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas, which you can stream the audio on the radio.com app, or you can watch us here as you are now, 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. So, yes, we've been doing it for almost 3 years now.
I'm going to start camping out over at that park, so I'll start to get us a lot more insight. I'm going to get a little camouflage gear.
Ron's ready for the 2-hour show. There is my brother from another mother, Brian. We grew up together. Hey, man. Chaz knows him. That's right.
Man, how you feeling, my man? You back in business?
Oh, dude, he's 100%. Unfreaking believable.
Nice.
That's because he's tough as nails. He's a badass.
Is.
Here's Napoleon.
I get getting a pass rush, but I mean, you got Max Crosby. You're going in his year 2 of Cleve Farrell, where he actually has an opportunity to play the same role. You have Carl Nassib that you brought in. I mean, I honestly think that the pass rush might be okay this year, especially when you have guys at the defensive tackle position. I would like a big time guy. Like I was big on Ngakoue, but that's just not going to happen at this stage of the game.
Yeah.
T Ford, I don't see that happening, and I don't see Chris Jones that happening either. And a lot of it goes back to what Chaz said about salary cap. I mean, they just don't have the bread right now to go make it happen.
Yeah,
right.
And Malik Collins too. You're forgetting Malik Collins.
Exactly. That's my guy. That's my guy.
Yeah.
He's going to be
huge.
Big
one. That should be a sneaky good pickup there.
Victor, where's the best Raiders bar? You know, it's still fluid. Of course, there's Stage Door. There's some other ones here in town, but there's a lot of plans to beef up kind of Raider bardom in Las Vegas. So stay tuned. We're going to have a story. I saw the drawings for the M Resort Casinos bar. It's unbelievable. In fact, the Raiders are going to be doing their pregame show there, except it will not be done for the first season. And then
they're the official hotel, right?
Yes, correct. Tico, will we have any reporters at training camp? Yeah, the facility, the Raiders facility is literally 3 miles from my house and close to Chaz's too. Yes,
Nice.
we will be all over camp if we can go. That's the other thing.
Right.
We've talked about that before, right, Q? We don't know if
Right.
they're going to allow reporters in, and if they do, I'm sure it'll be at a distance. And audio, like we can't. I'm sure we're not going to have a locker room access, any of that stuff. It'll be at a distance.
One-on-ones, that won't happen.
Yeah.
That won't happen. But we'll be there, my man. Yes, we will.
I'm watching golf, and they kind of do like a robotic interview. You know, when the golfers come off the course, they just have a microphone set up, and then the guy in the studio interviews them instead of having like a one-on-one interview. So, like what you talked about, Q, I think instead of doing the scrums and how they used to do it, it'll be some kind of a podium locker room kind of deal where everybody just jumps on and asks questions. It'll be tough, but I know they'll work it out, and it'll end up being a good thing. But it's not gonna be the same.
No. The days of us getting the one-on-ones, being up in the locker room, all that other stuff, those days are over, man. Those just it's going to be a lot different. Even guys in the press box. I mean, they're not going to have the press boxes full as they used to. I mean, it's going to be different, but we'll adapt and we'll figure out how to bring the best content to you, because that's just what we do. But it's going to be interesting.
Sports, I'm spending all weekend watching golf just because I want to watch sports. But it's something. I'll take anything.
Yeah, so many people want to trade Gabe Jackson. I
think the reason for that is because he was already put out there on the block. You know, I mean, they put him on the block and they didn't get what they wanted. And I think he's a valuable asset. And the thing about it, the only reason I would be okay with trading him is because I feel like they have quality depth behind him. And I think John Simpson's going to play sooner than later. You know, I mean, I think he's going to be a guy that's going to get in really, really soon. And I don't think it's going to be for Richie Incognito. So I think it will be for Gabe Jackson. I just don't know if there's a guy that's worth trading him for right now. You know what I mean? I think they put it out there.
That's my point.
At one point they put it out there. So it's like, yeah, we could do this. And then it didn't happen. He's like, oh, okay, never mind. We'll keep him because, well, he's still a hell of a player.
Yeah, but it's a great trade chip to have too.
Yes, there you
go. You know, the offensive line is probably our strongest point. You know, if you look at every position, right? I feel like the offensive line is the strongest one. But this year of COVID, I feel like, you know, somebody came out with that, I don't know which bookie it was, but they had the over-under on Derek Carr, like really low, right? And I'm thinking the COVID, it might knock some players out, you know, and then you got a 14, you know, like a 2-week quarantine. So you got to have a lot of backups. This is going to be the season of kind of the backups, right? Because if anybody tests positive, now they got to sit out for 2 weeks.
True.
And next man up. So your depth is really going to be key this season.
Yeah, no, it's just still so many unknowns, guys. But I do think that, you know, when you look at the numbers, I mean, last week, remember we had David Strauss from MyBookie on talking about the numbers, because I was surprised that the Raiders were at 7.5 again. But it makes sense because they're new in Vegas. There's going to be a lot of feel good money on them, right? A lot of people are going to want to bet them because it's the first year in Vegas. They're better, but they're also going to it's just going to generate a lot of interest, just like the Golden Knights did their first year here. So I understand that from a betting perspective and why.
You think that would actually bump the number up a little bit higher because of that fact?
No, because there's more action. There's going to be more action on them winning more. So they're setting that line low, I think, to get put doubt in the bettor's mind, right? The casual bettor, Chaz, right? Because I think a lot of people who don't do it a lot don't have that kind of view of it. But anyway, all right. Well, we just wanted to stay around for a couple minutes after little after show talk. But thank you all for being with us. You guys stuck with us. Great conversation. We hope you like the new video platform. On our end, it sucks from an audio perspective, but we're going to fix that. We're going to fix that, and we will watch our social channels. Follow us on Facebook, of course, Twitter, Silver Black, the number 2 day. And then you can see all of our handles there scrolling on the bottom as well. So follow us individually. Check out Locked On Raiders podcast with Q. Make sure you do that. It's every single day.
Yeah.
And got a lot of great stuff coming up. A lot of great news. Couple of huge guests coming up on the 12th that we will talk to you. So we're just what we're doing in the they call in the business tease.
Teaser.
That's right, baby.
Oh.
Anyway, so we're gonna. Which there's still, I love the sign on the strip joint in Vegas, by the way, guys, this week that said, "Put your mask on so we can take our tops off."
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Isn't that a great billboard? I thought it was fantastic. Anyway,
wow.
All right, Q, Chaz, thanks, guys.
Real
Yeah.
quick, let me answer Wendy real quick. She asked where I was living. I'm in Central Texas. I'm in Woodway, Waco area. And are you coming to Vegas to live? That's the plan. So let's just leave it at that.
On, I got plenty of room for you here, man. Come on down.
There you go.
We're working hard to get him here. So for all of you who've said, hey, you got to get Q to Vegas. We're
That's the plan.
We're working on it. Heavy lifting happening. Trust me, we're working on it. All right, guys. And everybody on video, thank you guys so much for being with us and for always listening. Without you, again, we're not here. So we appreciate it very much. And we'll talk to you here in a couple weeks.
Peace.
Happy, safe.